The NHL journey of Vadim Shipachyov is both confusing and extremely short-lived, as the KHL star would only play in 3 games with the Golden Knights after signing with them on May 4th of 2017. At the time, Shipachyov was the second player in franchise history to be inked by the club, the first being Reed Duke, and he was coming off of a monster 76-point season with SKA St. Petersburg, so the hype around Shipachyov was huge at the time. Many, including myself, believed Shipachyov would be a great first-line center for the Knights, mainly because the team was expected to flop in their inaugural season. But boy were we wrong. Not just because the Golden Knights would become dominant in their first season, but because Vadim Shipachyov would immediately clash with management, eventually leading to him returning back to Russia. Shipachyov's issue was that he wanted to play with the Knights, but GM George McPhee felt Vadim would benefit more if he were to start in the AHL with the Chicago Wolves. Shipachyov would rebel against that idea and would begin to rub management the wrong way. Vadim's only NHL goal would be scored against the Boston Bruins on October 15th, and about 2 weeks later, he would be suspended by the Golden Knights after failing to report to the Wolves being called down for a second time. McPhee would state, quote, "You can't just practice and adjust to the game. Everyone here was playing better than he was. You have to do things the right way, and whoever plays well, plays." Just a day after being suspended by the team, Shipachyov would announce his decision to return back home, permanently terminating his 2-year deal with the Golden Knights, returning to St. Petersburg, where he would continue to light the lamp. Shipachyov may be the only star in today's video to have left the KHL to pursue a career, but he isn't the only player who came out unsuccessful, as another player was struggling to find a home before adventuring overseas into the KHL. Nigel Dawes was drafted 149th overall in the 2003 draft by the New York Rangers, but sadly would become nothing more than a bounce-around fill-in player. Dawes would play with the Kootenay Ice of the WHL to start the 03-04 season, being named an All-Star and taking home the Brad Hornung Award for the most sportsmanlike player. He would finish the year playing in 4 games with the Rangers affiliate team, and the following season, he would return back to the ice once again, this time being named a finalist for WHL Player of the Year. After the 04-05 lockout was over, Dawes would finally get a shot in the NHL, but he would only produce 1 goal in 8 games, eventually becoming a healthy scratch, and he would spend the remainder of the 06-07 season in the AHL with the Wolfpack. It wasn't until the next year when Dawes would become a full-time NHLer. In the 07-08 season, Nigel would tally 29 points in 61 games, becoming a reliable player on the Rangers' bottom 6, and even in the shootout. Dawes would score 4 goals in 7 shootout attempts with the Rangers, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough to convince the team to keep him around, and after playing in 52 games with the Rangers the following year, racking up 19 points, he would be traded to Phoenix, where he would play the remaining 12 games of the 08-09 season, producing just 2 points. Dawes would then get claimed off waivers by the Calgary Flames, and this was when he would show flashes of greatness. Dawes would produce a career-high 32 points, becoming a solid contributor for the Flames that season, but it seemed no matter what he did, it never really worked out. Teams were never willing to give Dawes a chance, and after signing with the Thrashers and recording just a single point, Dawes would leave the NHL, signing a 1-year deal with Barry Zastana of the KHL. Once arriving into the KHL, Dawes would see an immediate increase in playing time, and this would result in him tallying 67 points in his first 2 seasons. Things would only continue to get better for him, as he would produce 49 points in his 3rd year in the league, and then would absolutely explode, becoming a consistent 50 to 60 point producer. Dawes is still currently playing overseas as of today. This season, after signing with the Kazan Akbars, Dawes has tallied 42 points in 44 games, becoming 5th all-time in scoring in KHL history. Linus Omar is an extremely fun player to look back on, as before he was even taken by the Edmonton Oilers in the 4th round of the 2005 draft, Omar would become a viral YouTube sensation. He would become heavily praised for his soft hands that were mostly displayed in the shootout. His shootout attempts, successful or not, would become extremely popular, and many fans would begin to hype Omar up to the max. Those events happened in 2009. That year in the KHL with Dynamo, Omar would score 20 goals and 36 points. So when he came over from Russia, the anticipation for Linus was huge. He would spend his first professional season in the AHL, and unlike Shipachyov, he stated that although he was upset with the demotion early on, he took it as a learning experience. Omar would lead the Barons in scoring, and because of his success, he would get called up to Edmonton after both Hemsky and Horkov would suffer injuries. Omar made his NHL debut against the Lightning in early early December, and ironically, that night, the game would go into a shootout, and Edmonton would send Linus Omar out to take the shot.
Omar against Ellis. The spin move. The shot.
Omar's spinorama move would be featured on highlight reels everywhere, and people would begin to wonder just how good of a player Omar could become, as this one goal alone set the bar extremely high. He would finish his rookie season playing in 51 games, recording a solid 27 points, before being called back down to the AHL after Edmonton would miss the playoffs. At this point, things were looking up for Omar, and many believed he could become a bright star in the future. But the following season, after going pointless in 5 games, Omar would suddenly find himself becoming a healthy scratch, eventually being demoted to the minors for good. Omar would leave Edmonton in free agency to join EV Zug of the Swiss League, finishing with a nice 69 points, and then would return to Edmonton after the lockout, being traded to the Buffalo Sabres. Omar would only be able to play 13 games with the Sabres, as after producing 2 goals and 2 helpers, he would be placed on waivers with the intent of being called down. Omar, frustrated by this, decided he wasn't going to report to the AHL, ultimately deciding to announce his return to the SHL, terminating his contract with Buffalo. After the season was up, he would sign in the KHL and would immediately go back to his highlight reel days, becoming an elite 40 to 50 point producer, playing in over 400 games overseas. I personally wish Omar panned out, as he was extremely fun to look back on and was always exciting to watch. Brandon Bochenski actually had immense promise coming out of the NCAA with the University of North Dakota. In the 2000-2001 season, Bochenski would be named the USHL Rookie of the Year after racking up 80 points in 59 games. So, when the Senators drafted Brandon in the 5th round of the 2001 draft, many fans believed they got a steal of a deal, as Bochenski looked like a real offensive threat. Well, he would play another 2 years in the NCAA before finally getting his chance with the Senators. He would start in the AHL, where he would tally 70 points in 75 games, impressing the front office. This led to Bochenski making his Ottawa Senators debut after the lockout in 2005. Brandon would start off extremely hot. In his first 20 games in the league, Bochenski would score 6 goals and 7 assists, looking like he could become a solid contributor. But then, out of nowhere, the Senators decided to trade Bochenski to Chicago, and this seemed extremely confusing. He would play an additional 20 games with the Hawks, only producing another 4 points before being called down to the AHL. And this was when Bochenski would begin to bounce around. He would have a phenomenal season in the AHL, and teams would use his minor league success as trade bait to help acquire other assets. Bochenski would be traded to Boston in 2007 for Chris Versteeg, which actually was a critical move in helping Chicago become a modern day dynasty. And then in just 1 year in Boston, after being called up and down, he would be traded to Anaheim, playing in just 12 games before being flipped to Nashville for a conditional pick. Bochenski would join his 6th team in 2008, signing with the Lightning, and he would once again get sent down to the AHL. Bochenski would dominate once more, becoming the Norfolk Admirals' all-time goal-scoring leader. Bochenski knew he always had that goal-scoring touch, but was just never given an opportunity to showcase it. So he would leave for the KHL in 2010, and in his first season alone, he would produce 45 points, eventually increasing his totals on a yearly basis. Bochenski would finish his KHL career with 406 points in 412 games and would retire to pursue a career in politics. Bochenski knew he had talent, but he was never going to be able to showcase his abilities in the NHL. And another player was able to find that out as well, as after having a monster breakout season, he would have so much hype but failed to meet those expectations. Jonathan Cheechoo would leave for the KHL in 2013 after struggling to maintain a spot on an NHL roster, but 8 years prior, he was arguably one of the most lethal players in the league.
Jonathan to Ekman, to Thornton. Joe looks, Deeks, puts it into the middle. Cheechoo put it behind Jingle. He scores! He scores! He's got another one, and he is the goal-scoring leader right now in the NHL. Cheechoo on fire!
Cheechoo Cheechoo was selected 29th overall by the San Jose Sharks in 1999 and would make his Sharks debut in the 02-03 season. He would finish that year with 19 points, playing in 66 games, but the following season, Cheechoo would turn 19 points in the 47, looking like a solid NHL contributor. The 04 lockout would come and go, and headed into the 05-06 season, Cheechoo wanted to take the next step, and after the Sharks would acquire star forward Joe Thornton from Boston, Cheechoo would develop great chemistry with Jumbo Joe, making his offensive numbers explode. Cheechoo would finish that season recording a whopping 56 goals and 93 points, taking the league by storm. Cheechoo's efforts were rewarded as he would take home the Rocket Richard Trophy for most goals scored in a single season. He would back that tremendous season up with a solid 69-point campaign, but after that year was up, it was announced that Cheechoo would have to undergo a double hernia surgery to repair injuries acquired in the Sharks' playoff run. And sadly, after the operation, he would never look the same. His production would drop to 23 goals in the 07-08 season, and then again to 13 the following year, and in the 08-09 season, Cheechoo would be traded to Ottawa, where he would struggle to remain a part of the roster. After being bought out by Ottawa and failing multiple professional tryouts, in 2013, Cheechoo decided to take his talents to the KHL, and this decision would pay off. Cheechoo would be named an All-Star in 2017 and would become a yearly 30 to 40 point producer. He would announce his retirement from professional hockey in 2018, leaving a long-lasting legacy behind. Cheechoo, along with everybody else in this video, can help share a valuable lesson. It's never too late to give somebody a second chance. Just when these guys' careers looked over, they pursued something new and, regardless of the outcome, gave it their all. Maybe we see some current NHL players make the switch in the coming years, as all it takes is one signing, trade, or one bad season to turn a struggling depth forward into an elite caliber player.